Hello friends, and welcome back to some Hearthstone, and welcome back to some Midrange Shaman now that we're in the post-Yoff-nerf world. So, this deck is kind of interesting in the fact that it didn't really lose that much power, I don't think. Generally, people online seem to be thinking it's still relatively strong. And I would tend to agree. I've played it a little bit offline, but I have been trying to mix it up with some other decks. But the game plan of this deck remains basically the same, where you're going to be throwing out high priority removal minions for your opponent, just like Tunnel Trog. And so what we've done in order to accommodate for the nerf is we got rid of Tuskar Totemic. We've added in a second Tunnel Trog. We've added in a Feral Spirits and removed Alakir and our Rock Biters. This is something that's just gonna have to disappear. So obviously we're looking at some sort of secret hunter, which is okay, I guess. We should have some interesting ways of being able to trigger their secrets with everything we have going on here in hand and on board right now. And this deck does run quite a bit of... Oh, if we have a... Okay, so the thing I was definitely more worried about there was a Tree of Secrets, but I think we'll survive right now. And so like I was saying, we do have a bunch of draw in this deck, and it's interesting because in the late game, excuse me, basically all of our minions are high priority targets because we have things like our Flame Tongue Totem, and then now we have two Thunderbluff Valiants. That's kind of interesting. Spell power? No spell power. I'll keep the Divine Shield. I'm going to value the Divine Shield more, just because it's going to stick around a little bit easier. And then if our hunter friend here wants to use removal on a totem, I'm kind of okay with that. And then next turn we're guaranteed to get spell power and start our cycling, because this deck does have a little bit of cycling. 2 Azure Drakes and 2 Mana Tides, and a Blood Mage Thalnos, which again helps proc our little weapon here, Spirit Claws. And this should be okay for us. Oh, that could be actually awful for us. Oh, maybe we got out lucky there. So the issue is now we don't have enough power on board, even with Azure Drake, to be able to clear our opponent's board. We can obviously take this out, but then we lose our last charge. If we hero power into spell power totem, what then? And I am getting worried because we don't have a hex for turn 6, and that's basically the goal of going up against hunters. You need some sort of hex, some sort of really hard removal. I don't like the idea of leaving up a 3/4. I don't like the idea of leaving up that 1/1 either. Both of those are really not acceptable, I don't think. Spell power me? Is it worth doing this? If we roll a 3 here, we're in really good shape, right? And what does that do to us next turn? Next turn we're at 6, so we're actually at 4. We have a couple spell powers. And that does take... Now I'm going to value my last weapon charge a little bit higher. The reason why I'm doing that is because we can still buff this up with other cards that we can get, especially now that there's 2 totems out. This is fine. Now that there's 2 totems out, we're going to be able to get 50-50 to buff up our spell. Ooh, and now that's actually looking really good. Hopefully spell power. And that makes us kind of happy. So we'll just trade off here, and we'll leave up all of our totems. Because now in the event that we don't draw into a hex, we can still use our Thunderbluff Valiant comboed to take care of... not all of Savannah High Main, but a lot. So I think we have a chance here. Oh, and Harrison Jones is actually very interesting to see in this matchup as well. Not what we want to do now, however. So I think this is probably our best play. Get 4 buffs, clear off the majority of these guys here. And in the event that there is another weapon, or that the weapon gets buffed, we just Harrison Jones it down. So I think we're sitting relatively good, although obviously our opponent still has lots of resources, so this game should be far from over. But really, there's no way to... Yeah, we're still fighting for it. These are 2 very what I guess people would consider relatively strong decks in the meta right now. So we'll see how this goes. Oh, that's very interesting. Drawing at least one beast. Alright, just drawing one beast. That's kind of interesting. Can we clear? Not really, huh? We can spell power, take this out, and trade. Or sorry, excuse me. I mean fire elemental. Trade in here. This still stays alive. We'll hero power up to get the buff off of it, and then we'll also thing from below, so this can't get traded in easily. And then that does set us up a turn early ahead of Call of the Wild being farther ahead on board, which is kind of good. And then there's not a lot of things that I'm really scared of. I'm expecting our opponent then has they've been holding, this hunter's been holding a lot of cards, so I'm definitely expecting them to have quite a few removals in hand. And honestly, we are just going to have to deal with them at some point. So I say, oh. Yeah, so I say, why not now? Oh, these are pretty good as well. No, there's nothing we can do here. I think this is fine. Sets us up with a really nice strong board. So our opponent's going to have to use some removals now, I think, on us. And we still have a little bit of draw in hand. And then with Jonesy here, potentially a lot of draw if he weapons up again. He could weapon actually and just swing into the 5/5, which would be reasonable. Yeah, some direct removal like we were expecting. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, this is very good, I would say. So we're gonna trade. We'll trade in the. I'm curious. Is it better to keep the taunt or the 6 attack? And I'll say the 6 attack. I'm not too worried about getting blown out here. We use our Maelstrom Portal, which is buffed, to clear the board. We get in the 1 extra damage. Now the question is it worth it to Azure Drake? And I think no, and I don't mind the 1 overload here. So we'll continue to fill the board here, because we want to keep our opponent kind of on their heels a little bit. We want to be able to keep applying pressure here. That's fine. That's going to have to trade in with a 6/5, and now they have nothing else to do on their turn. So that's very good. Is Thunderbluff Valiant enough right now? And I would say no. I'd like Azure Drake to start. Oh, how much actually? That goes to 4. This goes to 3. I don't like that. I want basically right now Thunderbluff Valiant's going to be our 2-turn lethal setup. So I'll Azure Drake now. Hex a little bit late, but that's cool. 3, I guess basically this clears nicely, right? And I don't mind using that. Hey, that's a cool one. Oh, other beast. Oh, okay, that's interesting. I think unfortunately it's going to get wasted, right? Because we just trade into here. Oh no, that's fine. Here we go. Now we'll get our 2 face damage in. No wasting. And then we'll reload on totems. And so yeah, now we have a couple totems for next turn if we want to Thunder Bluff, but yeah, I definitely feel much safer taunting up there, knowing that our opponent basically has to deal with what's on board, and I don't see us losing at this point. Explosive shot would be the worst. Is this lethal regardless? I think this is lethal regardless, right? We'll test here. There's nothing that saves them now, right? Okay. Well, that's an interesting matchup there, again, with 2 relatively strong decks, showing that mid-range Shaman, despite the nerfs, is definitely still strong. I think we've all been seeing it on the ladder. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you next time.